control. Whether decisions are easy, no, decisions are still difficult, right? But at the same time, I have a little more control. And giving your example, because I really wanted to consciously say thank you to you. And you were questioning about basically that why you are not evolving your system. And then but 24 by 7, one individual or two individuals won't be able to scale actually, right? You need to build skill systems which may able to scale, which may fail at time. And that's what is your role, is something I have enabled myself. My
Yeah.
prior persona tried to overtake sometime, but shayad I do talk to you, change myself. Such
Yeah,
was
that's interesting. So you've moved from founder driven to system dependent, Vikas, right?
drastic change, yeah, drastic change, Chetan. Chetan, you also helped me. Actually, I would like to pass on this message. So, if anything happening in my organization, be it sales, be it operations, be it finance, I'm more interested in terms of, is there a system?
Remarkable 3 decade of journey building communication protocol that became standards today, leading transformations in some of the largest financial institutions, and now building your own ventures. So, how this journey has changed you as a leader? It has changed the way you decide, the way you think, the way you deal with people.
I think it's like definitely 3 decades of work. Initially, I was an employee. My mindset was pretty much employee mindset. Then, when I was moving from an employee to, I would say, building my own venture, it was not easy. Although I moved towards entrepreneurship, but it took a while to move from an employee mindset to an employer mindset. I think could be a reason that there are risks associated with environment. But I think from last few years, the employee mindset has become entrepreneur mindset, where risk taking abilities are much better than earlier days, where actions decision making is much faster, right? If you ask me a question how individually I think I have grown, I am growing, I'm will still keep growing actually, right? Studying new topics, people see me in different avatars, being a consultant to agile to innovation to product to data annotation. Interesting learning journey.
Yeah, it is a learning journey, and I do see you evolving still, Vikas. So let's pick one thing. Let's pick decision making. So in an employee mindset or in employee role, rather, when you have to decide about taking a new opportunity or taking a new project, and if you compare it now, when you take up a new assignment or start even a new venture, what are the factors which have changed, which help you make the decisions, Vikas?
Control. The
Tell me
biggest.
more.
But the point is that, when they are trying to take a decision, it's very difficult to control the decisions because there are layers of people, there are red carpets, there are approval systems, right? Which was not allowing me to take a decision actually, right? I'm talking about me, right? I did got few organizations where the culture was very startup type, and of course, that has definitely helped me in my journey. Now, when tell you that, I mean, whether decisions are easy, no, decisions are still difficult, right? But at the same time, I have little more control at this moment, right? Risk is something which I'm absolutely okay to take, right? you know I have partners who are very supportive while we take decision. We do have our discussions, but at the same time, the time of those discussions to start is much shorter than when I was in a larger organizations, right? you know and the main thing is probably, right, any profit, any making, any curation, any innovation is something directly connecting to your you know organization, right?
So because I'll come back to your point of making decision faster and while they are at the highest stake today, right? So I'll come back to it, but I want to pick another point in your evaluation of a leader. So connecting with the people, enabling them, empowering them. How do you see that evolve in last 20, 30 years?
Drastic change, yeah. Drastic change, Chetan. Chetan, you also helped me. Actually, I would like to pass on this message through this podcast in that. See, initially, definitely, right, when I wanted to be little honest on that, very competitive individual while working as an employee, right? Yeah, that's good. That's fine but I don't know whether I did a justice to a fine line between a competitive employee versus, taking taking control of other, right? Then, my journey of an entrepreneurship is where I initiated with like a freelance consultant, moving towards a small company to, building it. I think evolution was definitely there in all those aspects, but now, from last couple of years, I would say I am more interested in building system, making sure there is a system. You say system, you say process, making sure there are right people doing it, making sure it is not impacting or in improving or doing something great because of an individual like me. No, that's not something, right? An entrepreneurship, which I now understood, right? For a good period of time, it was individual Vikas. Now it's more of a system. This verbology, I took it from you. I won't say that exactly I take it. I might be knowing about that, but at least there
Yeah.
is a nomenclature and a language. I got it. So if anything happening in my organization, be it sales, be it operations, be it finance, I'm more interested in terms of, is there a system? Or if there is any problem, I do see that, okay, where we need to really, relook our system and try to change in that part actually. So that's a very big change in me. And I would like to say probably that is one of a change which is helping me in terms of scaling, right? For a good period of time I was not able to scale. The reason is that one hero Superman is basically working very nice, absolutely great, not doing any mistakes, quality was amazing, but 24 by 7, one individual or two individuals won't be able to scale actually, right? You need to build skill systems which may able to scale, which may fail at time, and that's what is your role, is something I have enabled myself from few years now actually, and I'm still trying to improve in the same process. My
Yeah.
prior persona try to overtake sometime, but shayad I do talk to you, change myself, such
Yeah,
was.
that's interesting. So you moved from founder driven to system dependent, Vikas, right?
I think I didn't thought of it. Now I will give this name. Now I'm founder driven to system, right? Still we have a founder office.
Hmm.
Still we drive, right? At the same time, I think it will be amazing if I have a system which will, evolve the systems. I think I'm yet not
Yeah.
reached that where there is a system which evolves the system. And now that system is still founder office. Chetan.
Yeah, I think that's the next stage where we iterate the system itself, Vikas. Yeah, interesting. What about your competitive hat? Do you still wear it time to time now?
That has not changed actually. Let me tell you that has not changed. I think great. I'm a human being, right? We taste success. The moment that success you taste, at times you feel that okay, fine, you have achieved something, right? Maybe for a minute or for a few times, basically, right, that competitiveness may go down. Actually, it has happened a couple of times with me actually. But the good part is that, right, I have always started basically, setting up new bars with respect to that. If you personally ask me, that systems are really helping me in terms of becoming more competitive now. As an individual, Vikas is same, right? Vikas always
Hmm.
like to be competitive. Vikas likes
Hmm.
to challenge. Vikas likes to challenge the system, right? Now, at least I have something to challenge actually, right? Otherwise, I was only challenging myself. That's what I would like to. If I give an example, every day there is 45 minutes I do spend on a particular system. There are a lot of lot of initiatives we have worked. So those 45 minutes, my role along with few of my founders are to challenge the system with respect to objectives, outcomes, right? And see if it is, even if it is going right, then what's harm in basically being competitive with system actually. That's
Yeah.
what.
But I think that's a new mantra. Now you're competitive with the system, not with others, right? So, and I think that would be a key learning for the audience listening to this podcast also, Vikas, that you could be competitive, but with what you're competitive, that could change, right, for better.
No, I mean, I'll honestly give you some examples. There was a time when we were really struggling with sales, and then I think I also had a discussion with you, right? And then, I understood that, it is not Vikas and friends and family of Vikas will bring the business actually, right? It would be a system which will bring a business right all together. I think I consciously started working towards that, right? I got one of vendor partner, amazing, right? Who had basically set it up a system. Then it was working and still we were not getting results. Then I had few more people got into that, right? From our side. And then, last week we had three new client empanelment NDA signed, doing an POC with that. That's, I don't know any one of them. None of them are from same geography, right? So that means system is working right, altogether. However, I had a discussion last week with you, Chetan. I am giving your example because I really wanted to consciously say thank you to you. And you were questioning about basically that why you are not evolving your system. And then we, out of those three last week, one of them has come from my digital presence. Right? Yes, that was really interesting actually, right? That, okay, why don't you add medium to the system, right? Now I got so impressed with that. I have taken some strategic decisions, right? How I could probably, even add more mediums and more sales power, right, all together, right? So let's not stop there. So, yeah, matlab, amazing, very good journey.
That's really, I mean, I think I would say that's really fascinating to hear about building the sales system. And because I think that's the challenge which most of the founders face,
Every
because, right? And I think this is something for all of them to learn from, that how building the systems and not just relying on your family and friend could change the scale for your venture. So
yeah.
because now, yeah, you want to say something?
No, I was saying for the audience of this podcast, actually, when we talk about family and friends, we are talking about our network, actually, right? Unless until we are getting a business which is not even our network, right? There is no sales systems, actually, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Absolutely, because yeah. So because while we are at systems now, we have moved from identity to system, but I just want to go back for a moment. You mentioned about the speed of decision has increased now, right? So help me understand, what are the factors which increase? Is it just your evaluation of a leader, or is there more to it?
While I won't lie that it is my own, propagation towards, little more experienced than what I was earlier in terms of how I look a subject of decision, right? But the good part is that there is much more to, you know, scrutiny. There is much more to review because there is already a system in place, or there is no system in place actually, right? So that whole ecosystem actually helps me in terms of taking a decision. It's not I take a decision which is my decision. It is more of a decision which comes out of the system now, right? I would like to say that a young chief of staff of mine sometimes take a decision which I feel is better decision than me, right? It's a part of a system which I never had in my past, right? So in total, if you ask who is Vikas, Vikas likes to take fast decisions earlier also, now also, right? So that's more of a mindset of taking a faster decision. Sometimes you fail, sometimes you are pass, right? Earlier days, although even I wanted to take faster decisions, the constraints while working in organization will not are not allowing me to basically to take. Now I am able to take faster decisions actually because that constraints are not there, as well as that system is giving me more data decisions in terms of taking right decisions. And yes, it is good to take some wrong decisions. You learn.
You learn, absolutely. There are no wrong decisions. Taking no decision itself is the biggest, I mean, is the
Oh,
worst decision, Vikas. Yeah.
you will be surprised. Very recently what spoke to my partner community, and I said that let's do one thing every week. We will look for a challenge, right? We do have weekly call among founders, and as you said, I think to remain competitive, we said let's take a challenge and let's write that challenge to each other. And we need to be basically good enough to really say, is it a challenge or it's a BAU thing, right? A challenge could be to that extent that one of a founder is saying that, I really wanted to master a subject in a week. and I'll come back. Actually, that's a challenge, actually, right? Challenge is not converting a sales. I am not saying that's a BAU, that's a part and parcel of my life, right? Our life. Even I wanted to create a system around challenge now, after seeing how in 1 week we have done certain things which we were not able to, do that part actually, because we were thinking, okay, nahi, somebody from outside will come and do it actually. Like, so that, so I don't know whether how much it is connecting to systems, but I feel that a goal which is challenge driven is something very recently I have adopted from few weeks. Challenge driven goals. A goal,
Challenge
something.
driven calls.
Why I'm
Yeah.
saying, right? Why I'm saying, okay, I'm considering myself a leader, head of an organization, entrepreneur. Now, if I do not have a challenge in my head, right, or a goal which is challenging actually, right, then how I can, uplift my team, right? How I can, lead by example on that front. At times it has happened actually when you achieved your goals, you were started relaxing actually. I think this is something which is really helpful. I have realized it. Maybe in my
Yeah.
next podcast, I'll give you some results.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting the way we look at typically we look at the competitiveness, right? It's sometimes considered as not so
Maybe
healthy also,
challenge. Exactly. Exactly.
right?
So,
But the way because you have shown the trajectory, competitiveness for a betterment, right? For continuous improvement. You've
you
used
are
the
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So competitive, yes. So I think that is very important, right? That is very, very, it's very easy to, feel good. Success
uh,
give you feel good factor. I'm sure you should enjoy that part, but at the same time, look for what next.
true. Have a system for keep on looking. So because I want to go back on decision because that's I think the second biggest challenge, decision fatigue. The leaders and the founders face. So something very interesting you mentioned that now you are not taking decisions alone while you have more control. You can, but you still have a system of taking decisions along with your partners, along with your chief of staff, and maybe others. Now, despite of having taking decisions along with others, how are you able to do it faster? Because typical standard wisdom is if I have to take a decision along with others, it will slow it down, Vikas. Right? So, how are you doing it?
I think, see, any meeting we get in, we try to close the meeting with few actions, which ends up basically some kind of a decision. Now, there is a possibility, Chetan, that you end up not taking a decision as an outcome of particular meeting, but there could be a decision or there could be an action which says, okay, can you do this thing so that we can take a decision next day or next to next day or in a week standpoint. Our discussions has started very action oriented, right? Now that's one thing which is really helping us making a decision, right? Okay, if I really say, if we enter in a meeting, we try entering in a meeting that we will come out of basically taking a decision and making sure somebody is an owner of it, right? If we are not able to take a decision, then there is somebody is an owner of it. Okay, fine, we are not able to do it today. Can you, Vishal, do a POC so that tomorrow we will get a data and we take a decision? So what we have done, we have created an action oriented ownership and a day and say, ठीक है, Vishal, can you immediately book? Everybody is free 11:45 tomorrow. Yes, which means everybody is now bound to reach to that stage to take a decision. So that's what I am doing actually. But if you think about, this is a system actually, right? It's a decision making system
Yeah,
which
yeah.
we were able to create.
And you also bring in the action also in it because I mean, and I think that's also kind of a key take for me that decision is all about taking action. It's as simple as that if you really look at it, right? You
Decision is all about taking an action. Either you take action towards decision or you take an action towards a step of a decision, actually, right? Having a meeting, talking through without coming out of an action as a step towards decision or 100% towards a decision is wastage of all those people who were part of that particular meeting. मतलब मेरे पास टाइम नहीं है इन सब चीजों के लिए. I don't think so.
yeah. No, because thanks a lot. So, we discussed about your identity of competitiveness, control, and how it has changed over the time as you grow from a engineer to entrepreneur now, serial entrepreneur. We discuss about two very critical system for any leader, any founder. First is the sales system, and second is a decision making system. I think these are the core for anyone running your organization. uh, Anything else, any other message because you would like to share with the fellow founders who are in the stage of scaling, who could benefit from your journey of creating system and evolving your identity?
I think two things which you yourself has basically spoken more: add systems. Even if you wanted to add systems, start with your sales decision making part. I think that will be very useful. Sales is everything important, actually, right? Another thing which I really wanted to say: look for someone who could talk to you, who could ask you questions. I mean, I have used you several times, right? Quote unquote, in terms of challenging myself. In fact, I was talking to my fellow founders last week about the same thing, actually. And I said that, what happens at times, what happens, you are in the system, right? And when you are in the system, you probably are not able to think through. Nobody, okay, anybody asking me a question from the system, which is same questions actually, which I am asking myself, right? तो कुछ extra नहीं हुआ. And then if somebody else basically asks a question, there is a strong possibility that question is which can get you a direction. हो सकता है, possible है. मैं मुझे लगता है that is possible. Again, here I am saying you can have a coach, you can have a friend, you can
Yeah.
have a mentor, you can have anybody, right? My journey is fully because of mentors, coaches, and friends.
I think
101%. I
I
owe
think
to.
that's a yeah, thank you, because that's a great point to I think conclude this podcast. I think on the last point, if we are system, we stop competing with us, Vikas, right? So, and I think from your key, I think that's another which I would share with whosoever is listening is, once we become part of system, then we stop challenging that system. So
जाता है कहीं.
yeah, it's very common. We say it all the time, because then you are the system, then we are the system, and then it's difficult to fight with ourselves. And I think that's where the competitiveness with the system comes in place to keep on moving and scaling to next heights. Thanks a lot, Vikas, for giving your time. Lovely discussion. I'm sure it would be insightful for our audience also.
Thank you, Chetan. Thanks for calling for very impromptu and very, direct conversation. I always love to talk to you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for watching this podcast till end. Please let us know what's the one key takeaway for you from this podcast. Also, let us know which other topic would you like us to cover in next podcast, which could help you in your scaling journey and your leadership evaluation journey. Thank you.